Good morning. Okay. Does my heart good to be here? And that's literal. When walking in here and seeing all this, my heart opens, and that's good for me. When my mind is full of judgment, my carotid arteries contract. That's not so good for me. And learning that has been real important. Something's been going on this last couple of weeks has been foreground for me. And what that means for me is that Spirit wants me to pay attention. If something keeps happening, repeating, and I see it, my energy goes up when I see it. I have this idea from one of my teachers that Spirit's trying to get my attention. So one of the things that's been coming up a lot the last couple of weeks is people that come in the office and they have this program in their computer that was trained into them. And the program is if somebody I care about is upset and I get upset, that means I love them. You get that? That's crazy, right? Hello? That's not what that means. There's even this rumor that if you get upset and I get upset, this thing we call love is challenged a little bit because I'm kind of dependent on you for my happiness. If you're happy, I'm good. If you're not happy, I'm not good. I think psychologists call that codependent. Although that diagnosis doesn't help much. It's just a label. Energetically, it looks like my energy is attached to your energy. And that's something we usually learn when we're really little. In my family of origin, when I was really little, it seemed like I learned this idea that when my father was upset and he said things like, "You pissed me off," and stuff like that, I got the idea I was responsible for his upset. And I know that sounds crazy because I was little and he was big, but that's the idea I grew up with, that if he's upset and I did something, then I'm responsible for his upset. And the corollary, of course, is that I should be different so he won't be upset. Like somehow I'm responsible for the big person's upset. So I began to modify my behavior. I think we call it censorship, walking on eggshells, stuff like that. Then later on, it became clear, much later, but during the meantime, I got this corollary idea, this parallel idea, that if you're upset and it's my fault, then later when I'm in relationships, if I'm upset, then it's your fault. And if I'm upset, you should be different, so I won't be upset. If any of y'all in relationships, you know that doesn't work. Well, it works one way, but it's not a lot of fun. That I'm upset and it's your fault, so you be different, and you're upset and it's my fault, so I'll be different. It just doesn't seem to work very well. What seems to work a little better is if you can be upset and I can still be calm and peaceful and loving and supportive, where I don't try to fix you and you don't try to fix me because you're not broken and I'm not broken. It's a little bit different. So here's a story about that. Most of this stuff has been difficult for me to assimilate over the years. I've been working on it about 40 years, and it's one of those things, I guess, like the Tao. If you can explain it, that ain't it. So this is a story that's kind of about it. It's sort of around the corner. Our facility in Kerrville, the one we built, was a holistic medical facility, and we had a nurse there that was trained traditionally. She was an RN, and she was pretty much in the medical model. And she was having a hard time. She really liked nursing, but she was having a hard time. So she came in to see me one afternoon and said, "You know, you got a few minutes?" "Sure." And she said, "I'm thinking about quitting nursing." And my thought was, I thought you loved nursing. You spent a lot of time getting to be a nurse and worked hard on it. She said, "Yeah, but," yeah, but, yes, but. I get upset a lot during the day. And she said, I went to a psychiatrist and I found out why. I said, well, tell me why. She said, I have an attachment disorder. I said, well, what is that? She said, you don't know what that is? I said, no, I don't. She said, that means I have a hard time getting along with people. I said, no kidding. I hadn't noticed that. She said, tell me. I said, tell me what your attachment disorder is. She said, well, if a patient comes in and they're upset, then I get upset. She said, so that's what the psychiatrist told me was an attachment disorder, and he gave me this pill that I should take. Well, he gave me a prescription for these pills. And she said, but they don't make me feel good, and I still get upset when somebody walks in and they're upset. So there's something wrong with me, because the pills don't work. And I thought, well, the pills don't work. It's not you. The pills don't work. So you've been lied to, kid. You don't have an attachment disorder. So I said to her, help me understand how this happens. She said, well, you know, so-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, and I knew the patient, and she said, he's always cranky, and he comes in, and he slams the door, and he throws down the magazines, and she said, I just get upset. My hands start to shake, and I don't know what to do. And I said, well, tell me how often this has happened. And she started crying a little bit. And she said, this is just like my childhood. So, oh, duh, okay, tell me. And she said, well, my mom divorced when I was 2, and she remarried this guy, and my stepfather was, he was really an angry guy that yelled a lot. And I was, you know, a little girl, and I'd do something, and he'd yell at me, he'd say, you pissed me off. And I got that, I pissed him off. So I started walking around like this and being afraid and worried and anxious. Now the psychiatrist tells me I have anxiety, and there's another pill for that. And I said, well, so what we did is we talked about this a little bit, not trying to fix anything, just exploring. So when your stepfather got upset and told you it was your fault, you got upset. So his words, his judgment and blame and criticism, you had a physical reaction. She said, yeah, I contract. I said, yeah, me too. When I get scared, I contract. And she said, and then I want to do something to make it right. So you're responsible for his upset. And she said, yes, I grew up with that. And now here we are in the office, and a man comes in, he's upset, because I don't do this so much with women. So now there's a hint. So a guy comes in, and he's upset, and I get upset, and I don't know what to do to fix it. I said, well, that's not your job. The doctor's job is to fix it if it can be fixed, and actually it's his job to fix it with the doctor's help. And she said, so you mean there's nothing wrong with me? I said, no, you had some poor training. It's not your fault. Nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You got programmed. Your little computer, it was blank when you were little. You were an alpha, and you started getting this programming that somebody outside of you is upset, it's your fault, and you should be different. And she said, I do that all the time. I said, well, with men, and then you just got married. So we might want to talk about this a little bit, because this might affect your relationship with your sweetie. She said, well, it does. I just want him to be different so I won't be upset. Yeah, I remember that. Yes. And it was interesting when she said it to me, she did the physical part. I want him to be different. Look at that. So I'm not only contracted in my body, I'm wanting to control him also. The quantum physics, right? Going on inside, going on outside. Yin, yang, east, west, black, white, both ways. So we started exploring that. We put her stepfather in a chair. And as soon as she looked at him, she imagined him, her energy changed. Her shoulders contracted, her breathing changed, her eyes got a little glassy. So we just paid attention to that. We didn't try to fix that or make it go away or diagnose that or do any of that psychological stuff. We just sat there in that moment. And she began to breathe into this with a little help. And she realized this is really automatic. She said, in nursing school, I learned this thing about Pavlov's dogs, this Russian scientist, where he rang the bell and the dog salivated, and automatically he'd ring the bell. And she said, yeah, I'm like that dog. A man gets upset and I react. I'm not in charge of me anymore. I said, no, you're not. You're like a leaf at the mercy of the wind. And that's a hard way to live. So we had her stepfather in a chair, and she was just exploring how as soon as she looked at him, she had a physical, emotional, and mental reaction, which we think, if all those three dimensions are present, the physical, emotional, mental, then the fourth dimension, spirit, is also there, that there was something here for her to learn. And my particular, maybe addiction in this lifetime is exploring that connection between the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, with the idea that they're all connected, they're not different. So we're playing around with this idea because at the time she was pregnant and they told her she's going to have a little girl. So I've learned this thing over the years with ladies that they may not work on it for themselves, but if they think their daughter is going to inherit some of this stuff, they'll get to it right away. They'll do it for their daughter, where they may not have done it for themselves. And when they realize that they maybe could break the chain, you know, that this doesn't go on to the next generation, they get downright enthusiastic about looking at this stuff. Interesting stuff to learn. So we're playing around with her looking at her stepfather and just noticing her physical reactions. And again, we didn't try to fix anything or make it go away or analyze it or diagnose it, because she'd been through all of that. So she's sitting there looking and she's breathing into it, and we're just talking about how automatic this is. That her body contracts, her mind goes into beta very fast, her breathing changes, and this is sort of automatic. And when we're talking about it and the energy's really high and she's really not liking this, I asked her to switch places, to go sit in the stepfather chair. And she's sitting in that chair and the darndest thing happens. When she's sitting in that chair, she relaxes. And she starts giggling. And I said, tell me what's going on. And as a stepfather, she says, all I have to do is walk in a room and she freaks out. I said, yeah, that's what she told me about upset patients. Patient walks in a room and she gets upset. And over here in the stepfather chair, her energy was not contracted. Her mind wasn't racing. Her thoughts weren't self-critical. Literally, she was at peace. Isn't that weird? She played the role of the enemy. And she found all of that energy that she had unconsciously given away to him. Not her fault. She was mimicking what her mother did with men, because she was a little female person and the alpha female behaved that way. So that was her training. My point with her was to have her re-own that energy, to take it back into her body. It's called a recapitulation. To take it back into the body physically, to not try to do this mentally, but to breathe it in. She gave the energy a color. It was bright red, the first chakra, security. Like, duh, where else would it be? And as she began to breathe in this energy, she felt really, really good. She said she felt kind of stoned. Like, boom. Her brainwave was in alpha. So as she breathed it in for a while, she switched places. And I suggested, take this energy back with you to your chair, which she did. And she looked back at the stepfather and she said, he shrunk. I said, well, let's do it the other way. You shrunk him. You took back that energy that you had been trained to give away to male authority figures. You took it back into your physical body, not as a philosophy, but as a physical experience. So the metaphor maybe is you can read a book about swimming or you can get in the pool. Those are really different things. So instead of trying to figure this out, she got to her body to where the energy was, and she allowed herself to re-own it. So she's over here in the original chair feeling good, and she said, I can shrink him completely. I said, yes, you can. And what we knew was happening from neurobiology is that as she was trained as a little girl, she had certain neural synapses that had this experience happen so often, these synapses welded together. So it was an automatic response. She went from parasympathetic into sympathetic, fight or flight, as soon as he walked in the door. Automatic. It's not her fault. The interesting thing we've learned from neurobiology is when she moved into the other chair and she began to re-own this energy unconsciously given away to a male, she began to loosen and break those welded synapses. What I understand now is neuroplasticity began to happen again. She began to have new thoughts, new ideas, curiosity. Neuroplasticity began to happen again. Been studying that a lot recently, and what I understand now is when my thoughts are critical and judgmental, either of myself or other people, my neuroplasticity stops. And when my thoughts are open and grateful and appreciative and kind and loving, my neuroplasticity begins again. Apparently, I'm in charge of that, and I never knew that for a long time. So as she's playing around with this, she said, you know, I just realized I do this with my best girlfriend. If she gets upset, I get upset. I said, so it's not just men? She said, no, it's not. She said, and I do this with my husband, and I don't want to teach this to my little girl. I said, that seems like a really good idea. Let's not teach this to the next child. Let's break the chain. So she was over there being really happy about this and said, I think I'm all cured. And I said, well, you weren't sick, so you're not cured, you know, you're fine. She said, well, I think I'm good. And I said, one more thing. She said, okay. So I got up out of my chair and I said, come sit in my chair. And she said, well, okay. I said, close your eyes if it's okay, and breathe into whatever you feel. And she said, you know, like feeling good over there. I said, tell me the color. She said, oh, it's a beautiful blue. No, it's pink. And she breathes it in. And then we just asked her to sit in that chair and breathe it in a little bit. She said, this is great. I said, tell me if your body recognizes this energy. She said, what do you mean? I said, does this feel like your energy? She said, yeah, this is my energy. Yeah, it is, isn't it? You're experiencing the energy that you gave away to Hal. And I'm not going to let you go out the door giving away energy to Hal, because that's the same old pattern again. We're just going to repeat the same old pattern. So she said, you feel this good? And I said, most of the time, unless I'm listening to the voice of my mind or other things. And she said, I'd like to do this. I said, wait, you're doing it. And she said, oh, I am. She said, I don't have to change anything. I said, no, you're already doing it. She said, well, I could do this with anybody. I said, yes. She said, who do you do it with? Crazy Horse. Y'all don't know Crazy Horse? The most famous warrior? Anyway. Okay. So anyway, I tried doing it with Jesus once, and that was a kick. Because I understand that Jesus said, whatever I do, you can do and more. And if I believed him, that means I could put a little Jesus there in a chair, and I could become one with him. Well, I gave it a try one day, and you know, the guy was right. I didn't turn water into wine or anything, but I sure felt a lot better. And then I realized I could do that any time. I could walk around feeling like Jesus. And no, my ego said, that's too much. You can't do that. So at the time I said, okay, I can't do that. So I've been playing around with being Jesus, see what would happen. And gosh, my clothes fit better. I don't know what that's all about, but somehow that works. So what I'm sharing with you is that we got taught a lot of stuff that might not be true. I'm really not responsible for other people's emotions, and they're not really responsible for mine. And if I get into this kind of relationship with people where I say, you be different so I'll be happy, things probably are going to go downhill. That's been my experience for a long time. So what I'm also studying a lot recently is it seems like my relationships with people are mirrored in my relationship with my own body. Isn't that interesting? If I expect people to be different to make me happy, and I look in the mirror and I say, you need to be different for me to be happy, I'm in that same thing. I'm in that same relationship that I sometimes do with other people that I learned as a child. So I discovered that this is true for my relationship with money. If I'm with you, money, I feel good. If I'm not with you, I could feel really terrible. But now I realize that I have some choice. And what this trip is all about is awareness and responsibility. 2 legs. This medicine has 2 legs. 4-leggeds don't need this medicine. The one that fly, they don't need this medicine. It's just us, 2-leggeds. So I'm aware now that I'm aware and responsible for my reactions, that other people don't make me do anything. And the neurobiology, again, my current study, seems to demonstrate pretty clearly that if I say, you hurt my feelings, I change my blood profile. But I think you did it. Isn't that amazing? As soon as I say, I'm a victim, you hurt my feelings, you ruined my day, my job stresses me out, this traffic coming here pisses me off. As soon as I do that, my serotonin drops, my carotid arteries contract. My judgment of the world or other people makes me sick. Isn't that incredible? Instant karma. I mean, there's no wiggle room either. There's no way to slip around that one. It's just it. That's just the way it is. So it's also reassuring. There's a doorway where I don't have to follow those patterns I were taught all these years. I have some freedom here if I'm willing to be aware and responsible. I'm reacting, I'm responsible for my reactions. You're not responsible for my emotions. And I'm not responsible for your emotions. So that seems to be one of the challenges of relationships. If we've had that kind of training, where somebody got upset when we were little and we believed it was our fault they got upset. If we got that kind of programming, we can get into relationships where we believe they're responsible for my upset and I'm responsible for their upset. And that's not too much fun. So there's some ways out of it, and an interesting way out of it seems very direct and relatively easy. Well, maybe not easy. This medicine is a little bit like push-ups. They're not complicated. You can do them almost anywhere. You don't need push-up clothes, you don't need a coach, you don't need a DVD, you don't need to join a gym. Pretty much you can do push-ups anywhere, anytime you want to. That doesn't make them any easier. They're simple, but they're not easy. So a fairly simple way that may not be easy to clean some of this stuff up, if you want to, is to look for every place that we put ourselves like a leaf at the mercy of the wind. So if I drive out of here and somebody pulls in front of me and I hit the brakes, do I immediately assume it's your fault, I'm upset? That's been my normal behavior for a lot of years. Recently, maybe just the last 20 or 30 years, I've decided that Spirit sent that person to help me see how quickly I'll judge other people for my upset. I think really that person is a pawn of Spirit. Spirit sent them to help me wake up. So something happened in the last couple of weeks where working with somebody, they had really amazing results in an hour. They changed something they've been kind of sick from for a while. And they've been seeing a few doctors and they turned it around. I mean, they just changed the whole thing. And the lady made another appointment and she told me, man, after 4 days, all those symptoms are still gone. She said, I'm going to cancel my next appointment. And of course, she called me up on the 7th day and she said, all the symptoms are back. What did I do wrong? Well, you canceled your appointment. No, actually you didn't do anything wrong. You just flipped back into that old pattern. And she said, you know, it's the weirdest thing. When things are really going good, sometimes I don't do that anymore. I said, yeah, I recognize that. Yoga works really good, so some days I just won't do it. Remarkable. So I've had several of those experiences the last couple of weeks where people say to me, you know, that works really good. And then they tell me, I'm not doing it anymore. So I've been looking at myself, because the world is a mirror, right? Where do I know what works for me? And where do I not do it? I tell that joke for years. I bought a yoga mat, first-class yoga mat, and it sat in the corner for 3 years. So I thought I'd trick myself. I put it at the end of the stairs so I'd have to walk over it in the morning. Then I would use the yoga mat. No, man, I'm fine walking over it. That ain't no problem at all. So anyway, finally using the yoga mat, and I haven't worn it out. So I do know that every morning doing the yoga makes a difference in the way I walk. You know, I walk better. I feel better. So in the mornings, I get to meet that part of me that says, I don't want to do it today. We'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it later. Every morning I get to meet that part of me. So hello again. You're the part of me that doesn't want to make any changes. And I get to meet that part every morning. When I sit down to meditate and pray, I get to meet that part of me that says, let's do it later. Reminds me of some of my old drinking buddies. Let's just go have a drink, then we'll do this. Well, you can probably imagine we didn't. We went for the drink, but we didn't do anything else. That's one of the jokes. The guy said, let's go get a drink. I've never gotten a drink in my whole life. So fortunately, I'm quit dancing with the spirit of alcohol with a lot of gratitude. Thank you, Spirit. So anyway, that's pretty much the talk from my part today, that looking for awareness and responsibility, and my current endeavor is to look for every place where I act like a leaf at the mercy of the wind, where I say, if this were different, I would be happy. If this were different, I'll be relaxed. Looking for all those places. Not to judge them or criticize them or put them down, but to notice this is my training. This is what I grew up with watching. It's a lot in our culture now. You may notice we seem to be crashing into the victim culture very quickly. Don't use that word, I'll be upset. Don't dance like that. Don't vote like that. Don't talk like that. Don't do it or I'll be upset. Well, okay, go ahead and be upset. So thank you all. It does my heart good to be here, to share these things with you, because then I remember these things Sister taught. It does my heart good to see you guys. Thank you for doing this. Wokila. Wokila.
Does my heart good to gather with other people and remember what does our heart good? So with eyes open or eyes closed, let's just take a moment to feel the power of making a new choice. To feel the wisdom that Hal has spoken into space as being powerful words. But they only remain powerful words until I let them into my heart. And so in this moment, I invite you to join me in letting the wisdom sink into our hearts. The wisdom of reclaiming the gift that Spirit has given us as two legs. The gift of awareness and the gift of choice. Two legs we stand on. The gift of awareness, the gift of taking responsibility for my ability to respond from a place of choice. I breathe into the space knowing I co-created with Spirit in this moment and every moment. But in this moment, sitting in the celebration circle, whether here in this room or online, seed of choosing to be aware and responsible for my awareness. I feel my willingness to break the chain of inherited thoughts and social pressures, and feel anew my willingness and ability to be aware and responsible now. And I do so not just for my own benefit, but for the benefit of my relationships with my partner, my children, my co-workers, with all of creation. May you, may we, and all beings be blessed by our willingness to do this. And so it is.